Tuesday, 2 a.m. And then the monk became a hawk, and the hawk became a clown, who counted on an abacus the innocent dead. And I woke in my America, and I read about the boy who was killed while I was sleeping. He didn't have a gun. He was brandishing a hairbrush, but the cops thought he did, so they shot 20 times, and right before I woke, the clown became a phone. The phone was the old kind, with holes for a dial, and it didn't stop ringing, even when retrieved. My country is the child who squirms in her stroller in a stalled subway car, and my country is the wet piece of sweet-flavored plastic put inside the child's mouth to silence her surge. And I am a waker, blistered by morning, who right before the ringing was dreaming of a heart surrounded by pistols, and the pistols pointed outward, and the muscle pumped blood. So guns show up in my book a lot, which is actually really strange to me, and somebody else pointed that out to me. Guns and Tuesday, the word Tuesday, so I'm not sure what all that means, but well, it could be because I grew up with my Uncle Buck, who's now 83 years old and was a card-carrying member of the NRA, and took us to a shooting range actually for the first time when I was 14, I think. And I grew up in Fresno. Anyone? Fresno here, yeah. So that could have also been why that we went to the shooting range at such an early age. But this is a poem inspired by that moment. It's called Mercy Me. Once when I was young, my uncle took me out to the shooting range near the eastern hills, and my cousin and I took turns ripping up a paper target, first with a shotgun, then a semi-automatic, the kind that shot back into our loose shoulders when we handled it. It was fall in the valley and very cold. Fog and gray lights blurred the heart, setting the mind towards a thick silence. Yesterday, the earth shook so hard it tilted off its own axis. I thought of the way the body kneels before bark, but only if the bark resembles the face of God. I thought of the man who claws for my body, but only on Wednesdays, when the sky breaks open and shakes down a black rain. I learned something about the beautiful blue vein of seduction that runs alongside everything deadly on that late valley morning when I stood beside my uncle with a rifle in the crook of my girl arm. We were sheltered by a family of sycamores. They seemed dead to me with their naked and dark spotted bending. They weren't dead. They were waiting. A little buzzing in the speaker there. This is a poem. This is one of the poems I never read aloud, but it's on my mind today, so I'm going to give it a try. It's got 9 different parts. It's called The Gathering Mind. It's kind of a prosy poem. 1. My father finds his father's name on the wall of internees, a museum in LA, June heat and a dry breeze. I always thought if they captured me because of my race, I'd fight back, not like the GIs in the 442nd. But if going to war meant proving your loyalty, and doing so might free your family, then 2. Quote, we are helped in the shedding of dominant kinship groups by the relative individualism of the Angles and Saxons, unquote. Tribal as prior, family as primal. But who is the we? 3. Thanksgiving. Auntie shows us a picture of her sister. My own sister looks at me, a secret glance that says, what is going on? Did you know about this? Grandmother, we learn, gave birth too young, and the child sent back to Japan with a couple returning. She's a woman now, living supposedly in Hiroshima. 4. At a different museum, a golden copper ally bodhisattva punctured with bullet holes. Art as passage, art as good deed. Art as sacrifice and suffering as sacrifice versus suffering as mistake. 5. Valerie is Sikh, swept up with the rest during the protest, but kept longer, held harder by the wrists for her long hair and her darker skin. Later on East 3rd Street, 1st Avenue, that first apartment in New York, I have no idea what to do to help her. Make the tea, like always, burn butter to a crisp in a blackened pan. When I finally hold her, she is laughing and crying all at once, free and broken, and braver. 6. The construction of U.S. citizenship occurs only when the social body is confronted with difference. Fine. 7. To destabilize the logic of the binary tree, think of the rhizome, says Deleuze. Fern or ginger root, overlapping lines and pointless assemblages form planes, not hierarchies, not the trees branching into black and white, you and I, but how to reintuit the social body. 8. Quote, I cannot muster the we, except by finding the way in which I am tied to you. My own language must break up and yield if I am to know you. Unquote, Judith Butler. I hear she's brilliant, but at Berkeley she's inaccessible. Don't study there, Valerie. Instead, go to where you most fear. Dine at the enemy's table, then return. Valerie replies, pain penetrates me drop by drop, Sappho. This is how it feels, my wrist, my neck, in bed all day. 9. I reply, sometimes I can't resist running my fingers along a cast iron fence when walking or feeding them to the wind from the car window. How to own the hate I feel for the men that harmed you. Andachi calls it the secret rehearsal, those moments before the performance. For a writer, jotting down notes in a subway car, or walking through a park in winter, imagining otherwise. I'm beginning to feel the scope expanding. Everything is rehearsal. That secret part of myself always listening. The gathering mind. You once told me I'd be at your funeral, or I at yours. This brought you such joy. That's the gathering mind. Well, let's see. Maybe I'll read a couple love-ish type poems. This is a little boy meets girl poem. It's called Tree of Life. Maybe you're in a place I've never been, say Michigan. It's summer. Poplars throbbing green all around you. And maybe she's a Leo and she's standing in your driveway with her breasts like the gospel and her hot gold hoops. Or maybe she's a Cancer and you're the kid in chemistry, staring out the window and dreaming of a queen. Writing her a letter in your blue jay mind, her of the homecoming. Her of the deep thoughts. Her pale new body keeping safe an old soul at 17. And didn't you love her? Didn't you try? Didn't you find her standing in your driveway on a Tuesday night beneath a cracked blue dusk when she was perfect for the last time? Her of the wild, her of the Father, her before the tree of life, before she was prey. And didn't you love her in your silent way, listening to everything she could think of to say to you until her voice made a home for you and the world went dark? I read that poem to high school students recently, and it's like, do you have any questions about poetry or about that poem? And it's like, what do you mean by her breasts were like the gospel? That's the only question I got. Okay, well, they were listening, so that's good. So as you probably maybe gathered from the Gathering Mind poem, I'm half Japanese and half Korean American. My Japanese grandparents were interned in the internment camps in Arizona during World War II, and I've started writing a little bit about that experience, mostly from the point of view of a stone, though, which is how it's coming to me, which I find strange, but poetry's like that, mysterious. So this is the stone speaking from the desert camp, 1942. Between the Turtle Rock and the Crane Rock, the children found me, and I was shining and smooth and silent about my secrets. One day above me, men with bony shoulders came and built the barracks. Then I couldn't see the sky for the rising camps. I couldn't feel the wind which whipped between the ranges, and I couldn't see the ranges. After a short time, voices moved in, and I heard singing. Months later, dancing. But mostly what caught me was the quiet, concentrated chatter of elders. How long before a working stove? How to make a garden in this cradle of limestone? How to coax a stream from the highest of peaks in the freest of nations. In this nation we sought for the blinding. Some days no one heard the tears, but I felt them. They coated me like evidence of a prior sea. I thought, this must be how the humans felt when the rains broke above them every 200 days, and the waters for once didn't leak through their roofs, and they were happy. Where did this poem come from? I didn't even realize I had it. I guess I'll read it. It's also a new poem. It's about watching TV. It's called Like Any Good American. Like any good American, I bathe my television in total attention. I give it my corneas. I give it my eardrums. I give it my longing. In return, I get pictures of girls fighting and men flying and women in big houses with tight faces blotting down tears with tiny knuckles. Sometimes my mother calls and I don't answer. Sometimes a siren sings past the window and summer air pushes in, dripping with the scent of human sweat, but what do I care? I've given my skin to the TV. I've given it my tastes. In return, it gives me so many different sounds to fill the silence, where the secrets of my life flash by like ad space for the coming season. That was a new poem, too. I'll read a couple more here. This is a poem called Present in All Things. This is the one that I don't really know what it's about, but maybe somebody can tell me later. It's kind of a hodgepodge. Present in All Things. In New York, summer sank into us like a hot tire, and winters cut deep, so we'd walk arm in arm for a cup of warmth, our faces wrapped in snow. Now I live in a seasonless city, and I don't know where I am, or how, or what month. My grandmother, who's dead, is telling me stories, and my sister's saying, I'm going to die young. And last night I yelled at a cop in West Oakland while his partner looked on, my tremulous rage spiking the air around us with burnt cinnamon. What I mean to say is, I'm living. What I mean to say is, sometimes I can taste my own madness, and I don't mind it, and I miss you, and I'm alive. When explaining immanence to my students, I say, immanence means everything is both sacred and equal at the same time. Do you know how revolutionary this is? History teaches us otherwise. History has taught you to tie a black ribbon tight around your throat and try singing, and to do this every morning and call it good. Do you remember the tipping hill town we passed on our drive to the coast? The one with the dusk light cut from a vein, and the warm bread at midnight, and a dependable landline, but no hot water, and no spare devices for cooling? In my dreams, we arrive there, and we park the car forever. Then we sit like two children at the top of a stopped Ferris wheel, and we tell each other everything. I'm thinking a lot about my sister today, so I'm going to read a poem sort of inspired, kind of a letter to my sister. It's actually turned out to be sort of a letter to my daughter, but I was thinking a lot about sisterhood and my sister, and I think it's here somewhere. I have these nice little tabs where I number everything and then I don't even use them. And let's see, it's called Dear Daughter. One day you will find yourself on the sharpest edge of yourself. And if you're lucky, someone will answer the phone and will say it's for you, and you'll come inside. The voice is an open refuge. Forgiveness is a tower of hands. Once when I was young, I walked through a clock, then under a bridge, and my whole life was lit by a Camel cigarette. I met a man who was not your father, but he played the jazz piano, so we fell into it and we let it rain. Of course, love is kind, but sometimes a person must pursue a play that could do some justice to the storm within. You'll see. You will be thirsty too. You will stop believing in September. You will suddenly become aware of the fact of your heart only when a part of it goes missing. Well, don't believe what they tell you. No one likes change. One day you will find yourself resisting your own waking. Try tending to the sacred and see where that gets you. Try rolling through your life like a rusted train through a stockyard nation. Nothing fills a cup like moonlight, nothing. And no one will twist you like a man will twist you, but that's the deal, isn't it? That's how books get written. Don't believe what I've told you. Go convince yourself. Then burn the sage and claw your way through every oak on the rotting mountain. I think I'm going to close with two poems. One's a shorter one, and one's a longer one. I'll start with the longer one. This is the title poem of the book. It's called The Palace of Contemplating Departure. There's actually a place in Seoul, South Korea, in the Palace of Glorious Virtue called the Pavilion of Contemplating Departure. So that's where the title comes from. I didn't come up with it on my own, unfortunately, but I stole it. And actually I had a chance to go to South Korea and wander around the palace and visit the pavilion in January, which was a really cool experience. It was like sort of feeling, I don't know, like my poem come to life or something, like a virtual reality experience. So this is the title poem, and it's again about heartbreak and a breakup, but aren't they all, you know? The Palace of Contemplating Departure. You wandered through my life like a backwards wish. When I was ready for deliverance, I was ready for release, like a pinball in God's mouth, like charanga on Tuesdays, like the summer in Shanghai when we prayed for a rainstorm and bartered our shame, then we tore open oranges with 4 dirty thumbs. And the forecast said super, so we chartered a yacht. And we planted a garden on the unbending prow, but the sea said surrender with its arms full of salt, and wind shook the seeds from our shirt coat pockets. So when we washed up on the shoreline of sunlight near the city of wind, we were broken and thin like wraiths at a wake. But you tilted your head up and you told me I was wild. So I lifted my life and I lifted your life, and we wandered through the gate of radiant days. Then we married our splendor in the hall of bright rule. And I thank you again. You gave madness a chance, and you lassoed the morning. And we met on a Tuesday in a dance hall in Shanghai, and I left you in a leap year for the coveted shoreline, and you wept like a book when it's pulled from a well. But you were the one who told me I was wild, and you were the one who wrestled the angel. And I knew when I left you that courage was a choice, and memory a spear. And the X of destination is etched on my iris, and it shifts with the seasons. Don't think of the phoenix, think of the mountain. But where will I go now with my tireless wonder? And when will I again be brave like that? I want to end this. I just wanted to end. The last word of this poem is joy, and I want to end on that note today. And like Caroline said, I think it's such a special thing to gather actually in a room with people, like live and breathing people, and listen to each other and listen to poetry, and it's just redeeming, you know? So I'm really happy to be here, and I thank you so much for giving us the space to read today and take a moment to just be here together. So this is the last poem. It's a short one. It's called Deep in the Cloud-Filled Valley. You will never return to your mother's house or your father's garden, and the bed of your husband will whittle away. Well, what sort of life is that? Leaving things so as to praise them later with your own strangeness. Now you think I won't know you from the clouds that surround you, but you exalt everything that cannot contain you. I'll know you by your joy. Thank you.